Newfies. We end our program with this story in which us and them are reversed. All the people who should be on the side of the man in the story are actually against him, and all the foreigners who might be bad to him actually treat him like one of their own. Chris Brooks put the story together.
Go right in where he came out of. That's the bridge that's barred off, see?
I'm driving through the small town of St. Lawrence, Newfoundland, Canada. It's about 300 miles from where I live myself, and the population is 1,697 according to that road sign. It's on the edge of a boot of rock that sticks right out into the North Atlantic shipping lanes. When you see this place on the map, it looks like a big foot waiting to trip unwary sailors.
Now just keep on going.
The person giving me directions here is Ina Edwards. She's kind of the unofficial St. Lawrence historian.
You turn left up here by the stop sign.
Okay.
You see the high school's down there.
Newfoundland is a place that some mainland Canadians like to make jokes about. They imagine that we're an island of some kind of naive fisher folk. And actually, naive isn't the right word. Stupid is what they think we are. And the jokes they tell about us are called Newfie jokes. You know, how many of us does it take to screw in a light bulb? That kind of thing. And when I first heard this story, it was in that kind of a context. A funny story about isolated Newfoundlanders just too naive to know what would have been obvious to most other people in North America. But lately, I found out the rest of the story. And it wasn't a joke at all.
You're getting close to it, though.
Where Ina's taking me here is to the new school playground. But the playground is really the end of this story. The beginning of it is 3,000 miles south of here, all the way down in DeKalb County, Georgia.
If you'll step in here, I'll show you. That's St. Lawrence.
That photograph.
Yeah, that's St. Lawrence. And this is here's my grandmother, great-grandmother and grandfather, who were born slaves. Well, I'm Lanier Phillips. I was born March 14th, 1923. And I live in DeKalb County. And DeKalb County didn't furnish schools for black people until 1939. They didn't want the blacks to have any kind of education. Then they had the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, and they instilled fear in the black people. At least they tried, and I know they had fear into me from 5 or 6 years old. And I would go up the railroad track and see them come down Main Street marching every Saturday night. They would march. And then at other times they would be on this truck and they would fire a shot in the air or something like that. And I knew which way they were going. When they crossed the railroad track, if they kept going straight, I knew they was going to a place called Smoker Road, predominantly black. Well, it was all black. But if they made a right turn, I knew they was coming down to what we call Bruce's Alley, where I live. And I'd take off like a jackrabbit and tell people they're coming. And everybody would put the lamps out. They didn't have electricity. But they did. They did some terrible things. Black people had a chance to build a school themselves. They called Yellow River. 3 counties, Rockdale, Gwinnett County, and DeKalb County, got together and built this school. But the Ku Klux Klan burned the school down, you know. Yes, sir, they burned. I remember that clear. I can close my eyes and see the flames going, standing and watching the school burn, and listen to the grown-ups, you know, say, they'll never let us learn or let our children learn to read. I saw no future. I had no dreams, because only thing I could say, well, maybe I'll be a sharecropper or something, you know, once I grew up. So I said, I think I'll join the Navy. So in 41, I joined the Navy. Well, they had blacks in one place and whites in another. And blacks better not, interfere, go down to the whites, showers, bathroom, or anything like that. And the blacks on board ship, they could only be mess attendants, serving and taking what they call taking care of your officer. You were assigned a certain amount of officers. You kept his shoes shine, his clothing, ready, and his room clean. And you'd be out for 30 days or more. You had to wash those officers' underwear. Well, in the convoys, we had a lot of merchant ships, and we would escort them up to Iceland, and then the British would take over the convoy and take them on into England. And the home port was Boston. As soon as we left Boston, it was storming, and we joined up off Halifax. I thought we were heading for Iceland. I said, well, I won't get off the ship until we get back to the States, because the previous trip had been to Iceland, and no blacks could go ashore there because they had some agreement with America that they would never let a black man put foot in Iceland. And they had the same agreement in Morocco with Port Lyote. They had a base there, and they said no Jew could ever, stand there, and that was the agreement. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was.
My maiden name was Farrell, which I kept after I married. So I'm Ina Farrell Edwards. And at the time of the disaster in 1942, February the 18th, in St. Lawrence, it was Ash Wednesday. And a ferocious storm, real blizzard.
I heard the XO, the executive officer, tell the captain, say, this is going to be a rough one.
I'm Gus Etchegary. I was about 16 and a half in 1942. Just finished high school in St. Lawrence. It was a hell of a storm. There's no doubt about it at all. I don't know what the estimate of the winds would be, but it had the full strife of the Atlantic.
And I guess many people said, maybe it was even said in our house, what a dreadful night. We pitied poor sailors on the sea tonight.
Truxtun had no radar. So what they did was relying on dead reckoning.
Before they knew it, they were right into the cliff. Bang.
I thought we had been torpedoed. I didn't know what. I was in my bed. When it hit, down I came. I had all my clothes on. I had my life jacket, and I grabbed a pair of shoes. I didn't know if it was mine or what, and went topside. Well, it was dark, and it was storming. I mean, it was picking the Truxtun up and looked like just slam it against a rock, and you could hear the steel grinding. Then when day began to break, all you could see was the cliffs and the rocks. And it just picked the ship up, and down it would go and began to wash the fellows overboard. I almost got washed over 2 or 3 times, but I'd grab that lifeline and hold on.
At about 7:30 in the morning, my father called and in a somewhat frantic voice said, get down here as quickly as you can, get a hold of the driver of that pickup truck, load up all the ropes and lines that you could find in the area, and get down to Chambers Cove.
The ship had begun to take on so much water, we knew it was, going to sink. They had said that no man could live in the water more than 5 minutes because of the cold.
As we came up over the hill and looked down, here 300 feet or so below, right in the middle of a sort of a horseshoe cove, this destroyer, this Truxtun, partly submerged, but the full length of the rail was still above water. All these people hanging on, if you like, to dear life on the rail. Some were just swept up on those jagged cliffs, and then you tumble down and so on. It was a pretty dreadful sight.
About this time,